Hey everyone, as you, I'm sure, have seen by the title, this one's going to be a little bit different. Today I'm going to do I guess kind of like a tutorial of how I draw faces. Now, obviously drawing faces is different for everyone, but there are some similarities to how people begin. I wanted to show you guys some of the art supplies I'll be using. Actually, I'll probably just be primarily using this Prismacolor Coal Erase in purple because the Prismacolor is one of my favorites to use, and the purple is a little bit darker, so it'll show up better for this video. If I use HB pencils, which I don't very often, I do like to use the Ticonderoga. I don't know, it's just like my favorite HB pencil, or number 2 pencil. And then another one of my favorite Prismacolors is the rose color, but this one's so light, so I didn't want to use it for today's video. So when I first started drawing faces, or even just girls in general, it was rough. So keep that in mind. You know, no one, when they first start off, is going to draw a Da Vinci. You know, it's gonna be something that just takes time, takes development, takes practice. And I've been practicing and building my skills, I guess, or my abilities over probably the course of the last 5 years, is when I really started. Like I started drawing back in high school, actually longer than that. I started drawing when I was a kid, but it was never anything like faces. What I used to draw all the time was like doodles. I would be at church, listening to the sermon and drawing doodles on paper. It used to make my mom mad, doing that. And even at school, like I'd be drawing doodles all over my sketchbooks, all over my binders, everything. So, you know, it started off as just like, I think I used to draw this like little cat that had a giant head and like a tiny little body. And I remember that one specifically because when I was in elementary school, we had to do like a sort of teach the class kind of assignment, and that was what I chose to do. Was I'm gonna teach you how I draw this cat. And that was like 5th grade, and looking back I'm like, oh, that drawing is rough, but that's how it is when you're younger and before you start growing and progressing. Like, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be what you want it to be right off the bat. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes patience for sure. And sometimes it can get discouraging and it can get overwhelming, especially seeing other artists like who have developed their skills for longer, who are better, or even sometimes like being a smaller account and seeing a large artist who is very similar in your style, but, you know, somehow varies. So it's just little things that can be discouraging. Don't let it get to you. Your art is for you, you know. It's great to share it with the world, but when you have a passion for art, it's what you love to do. So it's what you love to share and express in your own work, you know. And I know it can be easy to be discouraged, but don't let it get to you. Enjoy the art for it being yours, you know. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with just a front face. So, like with many artists will tell you, is draw a circle. Now, to be fair, I don't always draw a circle. I kind of just go for the eyes right off the bat, but I want to give you guys an easy way to have a reference, an easy way to look at it and go, okay, I have an idea of what I'm doing, or I have an idea of what I'm looking at, or whatever you want to go with. I drew that a little too low. So what I like to do is that's usually what I'll draw, and that's it. Like for my reference lines, I know people a lot of times will go more in depth, or they'll have like, they'll already put like a chin line in and this and that. I personally don't, because to me the circle never actually works for what I draw. Like I usually draw it either too big or too small, and then I adjust the head based on what I drew. So really this is just making sure that I have a central point, I guess is the best way to put it. So what we're going to do is I always start with the eyes. To me, the eyes are one of the most important parts of the picture, because I feel like the eyes really draw your attention more. Even if they're simple, you know. Obviously the picture as a whole is what you want to consider, but for me, when I draw faces, when I draw my girls, like, I don't know, the eyes have always been like the first thing I draw. They're where I want the picture to start, and then you look around. You know, you always want like a central focus, and that's kind of what I seek to have, I guess. Now, I'm going a lot slower than I normally will, so forgive me. I'm trying to make sure that you guys can see this and that you have a good idea. And I always do these little like cat eyes. And a lot of times I'll actually start with the angle and then draw the half moon. And then on the other side I draw the half moon and then go with the angle. I always work left to right. Obviously I didn't there for when I started, but it's tended to just be how I work. Now, a big thing when you are starting out drawing, or when you're really learning how to draw, and even as an experienced artist or an experienced doodler, you know, you always want to have people who inspire you, artist references, people who are more adept or more knowledgeable, skilled, have been doing this for longer, to kind of inspire you and to be a reference for you. And for me, like, some of my starting favorites when I first started really looking at doing faces, like one of my favorites was Tom Bancroft. He's a cartoonist. Bruce Timm, which I'm sure a lot of you know who Bruce Timm is. Bruce Timm was a main artist for the Batman animated series. He was one of the artists who came up with Harley Quinn, and I absolutely love his Harley Quinn. Another artist of mine that I really like is James Hance. He's a beautiful portrait artist. Just does, excuse me, a lot of like fan art, fun, like just beautiful portraits though. Like he'll do like comic books, movies. A big one that he is inspired by is Star Wars, and his pieces are just gorgeous, and I would look him up. And then, you know, some of my other favorites, J. Scott Campbell. I love his comic book work. I love his girls, his style, the Danger Girl, you know, some of the, was it the fairy tale ones that he does? Like, he just did this Tinkerbell, and they had a statue made for it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Same with Little Mermaid. So as you see, I've put in the eyebrows. I still have the eyes. They're just hollowed out, but I'm kind of just getting my face into place. Another great thing with when you're learning how to draw is to kind of fill your space with art books. Now, my collection has been over a long period of time, but I do have a good little collection of art books, and I use them as references. I have like the art of Overwatch, the art of Adventure Time. I have an art book from Bruce Timm. I have the art of Aloish, which I think she's also another great artist, and a great reference to learning, and also live action references. There's this app on, I don't know if it's on Android, but I know it's on iOS, called Sketchy. It's spelled like that. And it's where people go and they post pictures. And with the pictures that they post, they will, like, you basically, you go on, you look through all these pictures, you find what inspires you, and then you try and draw it. And you draw it in your own style. You draw it in your own way. It can be cartoony, it can be hyper realistic, it can be abstract. You know, you draw it how you want to draw it, and then you share it on there, and they can see it, and you know, you can post your own picture and have other artists draw it, and that's really just, to me, it's a great place to practice. And yeah, I think you guys should check it out. So as you can see, like, I've put like a little U here. That is just going to be like the top of my nose. I know I'm not really explaining as I'm doing. I'm just kind of trying to slowly draw so you guys can see. But I put the little U because then what I do is I'll go right underneath on both sides, and I will add the little eyelets, or little like commas, I guess would be a good way to describe it, for the nostrils. And this is just kind of an easy way to draw noses, how I've always drawn noses. And then what you want to do is kind of shade just like a circle, like put a little line there and a little line there, and then just shade it, and it kind of gives the nose a little depth. Now here we have our baseline for the eyes like we made, right? I put a little line underneath of both, and that kind of gives that eye depth. And then same with putting the eye above, or the line above, excuse me. And then just shading in that little corner will give that eye more depth. And then I like to do little flicks for the eyelashes, as you guys can see. Just little flicks. And you can leave space underneath the eyes. You can have the eyes go all the way down. So, like, we're doing this eye, right? We have this line. You can go ahead and make them big, like doughy-eyed. And I did this little, like, B shape as, like, what would be the white highlights. And you can see you do the line underneath, some flicks for the lashes, and there you go. Just one of those like cute, almost anime eyes. And then anytime I do eyebrows, also I'll do kind of a little reference for that, since I just sketched it obviously, is just little flicks. So I'll find like a central point and I'll just do little lines sketching it out, and little flicks, and that kind of gives it the like eyebrow look. Like, you know, your eyebrow isn't just a solid line where it's like, unless you draw on your eyebrows, which there's nothing wrong with, but like natural eyebrows, if you're trying to go for it, isn't gonna be like painted or just a line. You're gonna have those little specks. So that's why I like to kind of just flick your pencil and just keep the lines pretty close until you make the shape. And if you need to do like a little reference, you can give yourself like a little line, right, that goes above the eye, and then just follow that line and get thinner as you get towards the back. And then what you can do is just flick your eraser along that line and it will fade it. So you'll still kind of have that line as a reference there, but it'll help, you know. So then, see how I've got the eyes, the eyebrows. You can do these little notches in here. Those are always going to be a little lighter because they're more so shadows for the depth of the face. Now you can add your pupils so you kind of have an idea of where she's looking. And then what I do is here is where we put the little lip for the Cupid's bow underneath the nose. And then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll draw another like little wide U, right? And that's kind of just the center of that lip. And you can spread it out more if you want, like I'm doing. And then you kind of do a curve. So you follow the U and then you curve it down, or you can curve it up, however you like. And what I like to do is the corners of the mouth are always one of the darker portions. So I like to create like a little dot on the end. And then I'll put a line down below and lightly put a line showing where the lips would be, because then you want to shade in that upper lip lightly and then slightly shade the bottom lip. And that's how I do it. Okay. Let me see. I'm going to erase that little line so that I can build the face around the lady. So then what I do is, obviously you can see like this isn't perfectly centered on the circle. That's why I don't always follow the circle. So what I'll do is I'll kind of start above the eyebrow, angle it out just slightly, and then slightly angle it in. So you're doing one of these, right? And then you're gonna go back out again. Okay, ever so lightly, because then you're gonna bring that down like this into a curve around for the jawline. And then I come to about where the lips are, or at least where the corner of the lip is. And that's when I make my angle. And that's where you'll have more of like a straight line. And you can make it sharper. If you need a little bit of a reference line, you can also do a line below the chin before you start doing that, so that you can follow it. And you just do the same on both sides, going down to about where the mouth is, and then angling it in. And then even if my ears aren't necessarily going to be showing through the hair, I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of draw like ear references in case I do want them there. So they're already where they need to be. And those you can easily like erase later if the hair is going to go over it or not. And then I just kind of put some squiggly lines on there. It doesn't have to be perfect, because you're not really gonna see it too up close, you know, or like see too much of the super details in the hair. Wow, I am off. And then you can do your neck as wide or as thin as you want. Like really, it's entirely on you what you like to do. Now, don't get discouraged if your piece doesn't look like this, if your art doesn't look like this. This is really just kind of to help you along and help you to have something to reference towards. You know, having references when you're learning is one of the best things that you could have, you know, and it's really the best way to grow is just to practice, use references, go out even, like go to the coffee shop, go to the zoo, the park, just enjoy your day and draw random people, you know. And those don't have to be perfect drawings. They can be quick, like rough, like, oh, this dude had those eyes and a nose and blah, blah, blah. And just quick, super rough, like he's got a cup of coffee in his hand and the steam is going up or whatever. You just want to get the figure down, even if you're doing quick figure referencing, you know, because the more that you start to figure out like the human body, the shape, you know, this and that. Let's say he had crazy hair. It doesn't matter. You know, it's really just a matter of getting the practice in. Wow, that looks bad. But that's how it's gonna be. When you're doing quick reference sketches and stuff like that, it's never going to be like a finished piece. It's never going to be perfect, and it shouldn't be perfect. It should be something that you just have fun doing and you're getting practice in on. All right, so pretty easy, I think, I hope. Obviously, you guys will yell at me in the comments if it isn't. I'm teasing, by the way. But so that is like straightforward, right? She's looking at you or she's looking ahead of herself. And so next we'll go ahead and we'll do the angled look. So again, we'll start with a light circle. Right? This time, what we're going to do is curve that line onto the side of the circle. All right, so remember when I do this, I use it as just a guide, kind of a, hey, this is what you're doing, this is the angle you're looking at, just sort of to help you along and give you a starting basis. It doesn't have to be anything that's solid, that like I absolutely have to follow this line. You know, it's meant for you to have fun with it. So as always, I like to start with the eyes because to me, the eyes make it easier. And that's just me. It's different for everybody. So what I will do is I'll draw the eye that's further away first. And this one is a little bit different. So we're gonna draw, it's gonna be more like this, right? So imagine just kind of the start of an obtuse triangle, I think is the right, or maybe not. It's been a while since I've been in school. But you want like a wide angle, right? And then your eye is gonna be more like looking at it this way, right? So that's your eye. Say we're looking at more so the side of it, because we are. And if you think of the eye as a circle, which it is, you're going to have that like round side because you're seeing the side view or the 3/4 view. So that's what we're gonna do, right? So what I like to do is just kind of create that line and then create that little round side. Okay, and then I do that line and this line, and then for me what's easy is going from this point. And I know you'd say, well, like doing the other eye, which it can be, but what I like to do is I kind of do the eyebrow, right? And you don't want to do like a full eyebrow because remember it's the side of the face. And then from the tip of the eyebrow, like the tip of right here, this little corner line, what you're gonna do is bring it in at an angle towards that little reference line, if you will, and then bring it back out, and then bring it back in. So you're doing this, this, and this. And that is what I like to use as my little side nose. See, so then what I'll do is you put a little U right at this, so like we did this, right at this little corner. Just put a U. And then do your little comma, like a sideways comma, and then a little other nostril, and then if you go off the peak of the nose, just below it, right? So again, I'll show you so it's nice and clean. Right here, just about. You'll go and kind of drag it in. And that's more like a shadowed reference. That's how I usually will do it. Like you can add the little nostril in there, or make it a little darker. Just add like a little darker hole, because the nostrils, the eyelashes, and the corners of the mouth are typically the darkest locations on the face, I guess is the way to talk about it. So like if you were to go from black to fully white, the eyelashes, the nostrils, and the corner of the mouth would be essentially in the black category, because they would be your darkest shadows, right? So like here you would have it real nice and dark, here real nice and dark, and the nostrils real nice and dark, and then everything else would just get lighter from there. So you would start going into more, and this is just like dark to light grayscale, so black to white, really dark. Obviously the pupils are going to be black because pupils are black, but those are going to be your darkest references, and then everything else is going to go to lighter. You're going to have, it's almost one of my favorite things to do, right, is to look at like contouring maps, because in a way they kind of show you where to shadow and where to highlight, because that's what it's meant to do, right? So it's kind of an easy map to get an idea, not necessarily like I'm 100%, but just get an idea of where to place shadows and where to place highlights. So like we did, right, we're gonna put that little comma here. And sometimes what I like to do, right, is at the end of the comma, that's when I'll draw this little lip. Because if you think about it, everything obviously on your face is attached, and you have this little hole, but the skin that's on the side of it is attached to your face. I know that sounds weird, but just go with me, right? So now that I have like an idea, you can kind of draw like a light little guideline for yourself, and then you're going to draw your other eye slightly bigger, because if you think about it, this side is closest to you. It doesn't have to be like ginormous, but just slightly bigger. Just going with like proportions and distance and all that. Alright, so we did the eye shape, we put on the eyelid and the little under eye, and then we'll just do an eyebrow. And the eyebrows to me are always smaller when it's angled, because you're not looking at it square on. And then what I like to do is I like to have her looking at you, or looking somewhere towards your direction. Right? So then what I do is, we did this line, right? What I'll do for the Cupid's bow is kind of trace that nose and do a little like fish hook right at the end. And then for this, the best way to think about it is kind of doing like another little fish hook, because you're looking at the lip at an angle. So if you do a little fish hook, and at the end of that fish hook, you do our little line for the mouth to the little circle. And then the line on the other side, you're actually just gonna make shorter, about half the size. So that you have more of an angled look. And it definitely takes practice. I'm still not even very good at it. But it's something to always work on. And all you can do is look at references and kind of just get a feel of how you want to do it. Right? So now, what I like to do, right, is you saw this little line I put. I go to the corner of the eyebrow, and then we come in again. So it's gonna go out and then in, and then you kind of go right next to the eye, and that's when you start to come back out again, because you're thinking of the eye as like its own little pocket for the face. So you want to leave that little pocket there. The cheekbone, so you start to kind of round it out, and then you can do the same thing like we did, where you come down to the mouth and then you angle in a little bit, just ever so slightly with this one, because you remember we're looking at it from an angle, not face on. And then on the other side though, you can do a stronger angle, because you're seeing more of the jaw. And then you have where your ear would be. And this is where you do a little more detail for the ear. So you think a little like pocket. Sometimes I like to add an earring. And there you go. And this, for like hair, I would do something along like this, because I like to have the hair in front of the ear, just a little bit at least, because I always have hair in front of my ears. And then for hair, I kind of just draw flowy lines. And I know it's gonna be different for everybody. They're gonna be like, what? How'd you do that? But it's really just kind of going with the flow. You know, you just sketch it out, and I really like the light wispy look. So that line needs to come in more. So let me erase some of this hair so that you guys can see. So if you think about taking from the back of the ear and bringing it in for the neckline, right? And then having something along those lines. So then that would draw into your shoulder, right? And then this one would be a little more angled. And then if you don't like the way that looks, right? If you're like, meh, that doesn't look right, just draw hair. You know, just kind of give her like this flowy hair that comes over the shoulder and back down. Easy and fun, right? So really, things to remember. Let's make it easier, because I'll break it down now. So we did 2 faces. Let me break it down into eyes, mouths, and noses for you. So for the eyes, thing of two, half moons, C's on their side. Use however you want to go with it, right? This is what I always do, is I always kind of do like a cat eye for a reference. And then I'll kind of draw those lines and pull them into the eye. So I give them kind of like a good shape. And then what I'll do is you can go from the corner of the eye where you started, or you can go slightly above, and that's where you'll put that second eyelid. And you don't even have to put the second eyelid if you want, because I know not everyone has that. Everyone is different and beautiful, but that's just what I like to put in mine. A lot of times when you draw, you kind of draw similar to what you see every day, which is obviously your own face. So a lot of like my little stuff I've noticed are, yeah, in ways similar to my face, except my face is a little chubbier. So I always do the under eye, because you got to think of the eye, like I said, as a circle, and the eye is bigger than what your eyelids show, because your eyelids are kind of like a protective pocket. So you got to think about it like that. And like I said, wispy, random eyelashes that they're just you starting, right? You kind of hold the pencil down, and then just as you're going, release it. Pull it up. So you're just doing fun, wispy lines. And then you can have her looking straight. You can have her looking to the side. Now she's gonna look weird because I have one looking straight and one cockeyed. But, you know, it's all a matter of how you want it to be. You could even do it to where, instead of looking straight forward, she's looking off in the distance. Just think of your own pupils, you know, your own eyes and irises, and how sometimes the line around the iris is darker, and then the color on the inside is multiple shades to create one shade. And then I always do like shorter eyelashes and more sparse on the bottom, because if you look at your own, it's kind of the way it is. Oof, you can see those. Sometimes that happens depending on how hard you're pushing with the pencil, where you can see the lines you were at. So just simple eyeballs. What I used to do for a long time was I had like a 3-step line. So it was angle, 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 right? And then I would do, so that's why I say 3-step. So 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2. And that was just the basis. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. So it was just a way to make drawing eyes easier, until I started figuring out my own way. And that's kind of what you gotta do, is you can always look at tutorials. You can always find a way that other people are doing it, but you really have to find your way of doing it. Because once you kind of find, and doing all kinds of tutorials, looking at different references, doing different kinds of studies, will help you to find your own way and help you to create your own set of eyes, your own style of eyes, your own way of just styling your art. Yeah, can't talk. And it's really all you gotta do, is just continuously learn, continuously expand, and explore. So always for my noses, and sometimes what I'll do is this, right? Imagine this is the bridge, because every nose has a bridge. So I'll do kind of this little like cone shape, I guess. And if you think about it like that, and doing the little sideways commas, it makes the nose pretty simple, you know. And it's really just a matter of finding your own tips and tricks. And a lot of times too, what I'll do is I'll extend that comma to where it kind of lips over, because you get that little lip in between your nostrils kind of folds like that, depending on how you're looking at it. You know, go in the mirror, look at your nose at different angles. I know it sounds funny, but do it. You know, it'll kind of give you an idea of how to look at the nose, how to see the nose, right? Oh, I guess that's one. Profile. Profile is hard for me. Profile, I think, is hard for everybody, but so this is what I do is I kind of think of the forehead, and this probably isn't gonna look all that great because usually I like to have some kind of reference to help me get an idea, because profile is one I'm definitely still working on. And I think that there's always going to be something in your art catalog that you are always sort of working on. So I like to think about it as there's the nose, the lip comes down and it starts, and then you go in, and then you have that nice little gap. And then your chin. And that's really how I always start my profiles, is doing the outline. And then I can go through and kind of fill in where things would be. The hardest one for me is profiling the eyes. Not because the angle is necessarily hard, but it's a matter of getting the placement and getting the idea of how it looks right. And then there we have it. And that's probably even so like a more angled jaw than what I would normally go with, because if you think about it, if you look at somebody from the side, their jaw isn't like, bam, super angled. I'm actually, believe it or not, when it comes to like sculpting a jawline or drawing a jawline, I'm actually better at sculpting one, because you're so used to feeling, or you can feel your own jawline, you can feel what other people's jawlines feel like, and kind of just go from that reference. And I did that when I did a sculpture back in high school. Now granted, the rest of it, like the face, all that, didn't look super great, but the base structure of the head was where it came out alright. So, and that is just where I like to kind of just fill in spaces I'm uncertain about with hair. You know, not super great, but to start. And that's why I like to usually have a reference when I'm doing profile. I'll go on that sketchy app like I told you guys. I'll go on Google, look at pictures. I'll, you know, look at people walking by and just kind of get an idea, because I mean, there's always things that you're always going to work on, and profile is definitely one that I'm always going to be working on, I feel like, because it's such an angular form of the face. But, you know, with lots of practice, you can achieve really anything. And that's not even including art. That's anything. So, I'll show you guys different mouths. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place sometimes. Forgive me. This is my first sort of pseudo tutorial. So, see how I like to always start with that kind of cup shape in the center. And then I go out to the little circles on the sides. And then you can do the bottom first, you can do the top first, it's up to you, but I always start with the Cupid's bow, making sure it's centered with the center circle. And that's because that's going to go right underneath your nose. So that's where your central line is for your mouth, you know. And there's all different kinds of mouths too. So you think about like in a slightly open mouth, you can do sometimes even just doing simple mouths like this, where you do a upside down U on top or a half moon like we do for the eyes, and then a half moon on the bottom, and then just a line, and you just shadow it. That looks cute too. You know, it really just depends on how you like it, you know, how you want to see it. Do you want some like little teeth? So you put the little line in the middle there. It's never a bad thing to have pages in your sketchbook dedicated to drawing mouths, drawing noses. You can even do the circle for the start of the nose and kind of widen out your nostrils. There are all different kinds of shapes and sizes to everything. Excuse me. So it's really just looking at different pictures, practicing different types, and starting to build a structure from there. You know, not every drawing is going to be the same. Not every drawing is going to be perfect. Nothing is perfect. So don't let your imperfections, oh, you know, my eyes are here, but my nose is slightly angled and my mouth is, you know, underneath my nose, so one eye looks off. You know, you can fix that eye or you can leave it. There are some of my drawings, and I think a good example is, and I'm sure you'll notice it when I point it out, but there was one drawing I did not too long ago that kind of drove me a little nuts because I didn't realize it until after I was done that, there we go, the face was slightly off. So if you look, right, this eye is slightly further out, but you wouldn't really, like, it's slightly further out and up. But unless you're really looking for it, you wouldn't really see it, because you look at the image as a whole and you enjoy it. At least I thought it was cute. So, I mean, you can't always expect that everything's gonna line up perfectly. Everything's gonna look perfectly. You could finish a piece and there can be something slightly off and you yourself are gonna notice it, but maybe not everyone else would notice it. And don't let that discourage you. Don't let that stop you. You know, enjoy the imperfections, because the imperfections are what make your art unique to you, what make your art beautiful to you. And that's one of the best things too about being part of an art community, or being and involving yourself in an art community. Art communities like Instagram and DeviantArt. Now, some of them can be a little bit toxic, you know, so don't let yourself get discouraged by that, because there are plenty of people who will be there to encourage you, watch you grow, see you develop your art, and continuously encourage you to develop your art, and hopefully inspire you in some way. You know, one of my biggest goals and one of the things that I can only hope for as an artist is to inspire people. You know, obviously, like, I do art because I love it. I draw because I love it. And you have to draw for yourself and enjoy what you're doing in order to keep it a passion. You know, as soon as you start making it a job, or not even necessarily making it a job, because having art as a job can always be a great way, but trying to, I guess what I'm more so mean is trying to adjust your art to social parameters, what you think people need to see, instead of doing art in your style and having your own way and your own style and your own unique portion of the art world, your own unique way of looking at things. It can become boring. It can become overwhelming and frustrating. If someone comes to you and, you know, you're working and you're doing art for a living, you know, they're coming to you because they like your art style, you know. Now, granted, if they ask you to adjust your style just for like a certain piece, you know, every so often it's not a big deal, but don't make it a habit of changing your style ultimately to adjust to what people want to see, you know, to just get the followers or just get the views or just do this. You know, when you start doing that, you start losing your passion, because you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for others, you're doing it for the world. And when you're doing something you love, you're doing it because you love it. So enjoy it, have fun with it, make it different, make it fun. You know, one of my fun and favorite little things to draw, which is outside of the girls I usually draw, is my little bear buddies. You know, it's okay to have something that's not in the norm. You know, come Halloween, I like to draw little pumpkin doodles, little silly gnomes, all kinds of other little quirky things, because it's fun. You know, it's different. You don't have to be parametered around one specific item, one specific thing. Like, oh, I only do pinup girls and that's all I'm ever gonna do. No, like that's not expanding, that's not challenging yourself, and that's not continuously progressing. That's staying within one little shell of what you're comfortable in, you know? So I hope this was a decent how-to or a decent tutorial. I know I talked a lot about other random stuff, but I do hope that you guys enjoyed it all the same. You know, if there's other things you'd like me to see, if you'd like to see something on hands, on anatomy, on hair, on inking even, you know, anything like that, let me know. You know, I'll see what I can put together. I know I'm not the best at this. I'm still kind of figuring out how to do all these videos. So work with me. Forgive me for some rambling, some other stuff, you know. This is all new to me. So thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you even more. You know, thank you for sticking around and listening to me babble. So I hope that you guys have an amazing day. Thank you so much, by the way. I want to say I just reached 400 subscribers. So holy cow. Like, I wouldn't say other words, but I'm trying to keep this family friendly. But wow, thank you guys. I'm so appreciative, so humbled. This has been amazing, and I hope to just continue to grow, continue to inspire you all, And I hope you have a fantastic weekend since it's Friday. And we'll see you in the next video. You guys stay awesome.